So it wasn't just Derby 150 that knocked our socks off this weekend. Also, the Kentucky Oaks was a phenomenal race. A lot of great undercard action on both days. We'll start with the Oaks winner, Thorpedo Anna. Obviously, the man of the hour, the men of the hour this weekend were Kenny McPeek and Brian Hernandez, who doubled up and won the Oaks and the Derby. Two very different horses, I would say. Thorpedo Anna just took that race, took the bull by the horns from the jump, and really never gave him a chance. I was on Ways and Means in that race, and I felt pretty good midway around the far turn. I thought Ways and Means was going to blow right by her, and then like 2 seconds later, I was like, oh no, Brian still has a ton of fucking horse,
right.
And she spurted away from her and the rest of the field. I mentioned this in the facing spot, like $40,000 yearling buy. This is so Kenny McPeek. Like, this is his specialty. He's been doing this for years and years and years, finding these horses at the end of the book and all these sales. Mystik Dan was a homebred, a very modestly bred homebred, being like Golden Sense out of a Colonel John mare. He just gets the most out of all of his horses. It's really incredible to watch, especially because you see all these auction prices like going to these super trainers, and some of them turn out and some of them you never hear from again. Kenny McPeek gets that, every last ounce out of his horses. He's an expert horseman, great manager of them, and I think that's evident in him not committing to running Mystik Dan the Preakness right away. Obviously, as fans, we want to see him run, but he wants to do what's right by the horse. He's run him back quickly before, and it didn't work out. He's got to manage every horse individually, but Thorpedo Anna was incredible. I honestly am a little surprised that he's not thinking about running her in the Preakness, because Kenny's the kind of guy that will jump into a race, maybe an unorthodox race for a horse. Some people will criticize him for doing stuff like sending Classic Causeway to Royal Ascot, but you got to take chances in this business. She was honestly she was the most impressive horse of the weekend for me, and there were a lot of really awesome performances, but Thorpedo Anna was dazzling, John.
She was, and you're right. It was right out of McPeek's playbook of buying a less than stellar pedigree, and certainly looked at athleticism over price for sure. And he's done it time and time again. I mean, you can go through his resume of top horse achievements, and the majority of them are yearling purchases for under 100,000. And he came on our show a couple of weeks ago and talked about the fact that he's looking for an athlete. He's looking for an athlete first. And then, very secondarily is pedigree, I think was his exact words in the interview. But, Joe, to your point, he won the Preakness with Swiss Skydiver a couple of years ago. So it's not like he hasn't done that. If you look at his playbook again, it's not like he hasn't done that before. So I'm sure that's part of the reason. But what I like is that most trainers, I think, and owners for that matter, when sitting in the glow of the winner's circle of the Kentucky Derby, would say, shit, yeah, I'm going on to the Preakness, because that's what you do. He actually took a beat and was like, you know what? I've done this before with this horse, and I see how this movie ends, and I don't want to repeat it because he's such a nice horse. So I give him a lot of kudos for being able to take a step back and not get caught up in the wave of the excitement of it all. Joe, I had a different race that I thought, or two races that I thought were really, really interesting and exciting. And we talked to Mike Tirico about Mindframe and the fact that, that might have been the best horse that Todd Pletcher, ran that weekend in a bunch of good races that he ran. And that's the Rapoli St. Elias Constitution Monster that they purchased for $600,000 as a yearling. And what's interesting is Mindframe is not Breeders' Cup nominated. So he's going to need to make hay during, his 3-year-old campaign and not wait until the Breeders' Cup to try to do it, or it's going to cost them a lot of money to go ahead and put the horse up. But I would love to see that horse come back again. It's on short rest for him too, but come back off of that impressive 7+ length win, on Derby Day. I think it was like race 3. It was earlier in the day, but just won it in a hand ride and showed that he can do it multiple ways. The first race when he broke his maiden, he sat off it and won. This race, he went right to the front and kept on going. And the other horse that I think kind of got lost in the wash this weekend is Idiomatic, the reigning champion, reigning filly and mare champion, who came back, hadn't run since the Breeders' Cup when she won the Breeders' Cup Distaff, and she crushed. I mean, absolutely crushed a good field in the La Troyenne. And to me, that was like a sit up and take notice kind of race. Like, holy crap, how many times, first of all, do you have a 5-year-old Curlin that comes back that is already grade 1 winner, already champion, and they brought her back into racing? Like, if it's not for Juddmonte, that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen with the majority of racing programs. And it's like, we're going to give this filly another shot to race during her 5-year-old year, because ultimately we're not going to sell her. We're going to keep her as a broodmare anyway. Let's try to get, back-to-back victories, back-to-back Eclipse awards for her. But Joe, I was so just, off the charts impressed. And again, her numbers weren't that great, but she looked great winning that race.
Absolutely. And like, she looked like she was going to be fourth turning for home. She was under siege at the top of the lane, and then just kicked away and splashed away and was clearly much the best. Obviously she was a class of that field, but it wasn't like a field full of bums. It was a legitimate grade 1 field. Yeah, she is very, very impressive. It was a good day for Brad Cox on Friday, because he also had First Mission, who I thought looked pretty good in the Ali Sheba, and in a handicap division that's kind of like crying out for some leaders. I think he's a horse. If you remember, he was on the Triple Crown Trail last year before getting hurt. So he's a horse that I would look out for some of those major handicap division prizes later in this summer and fall. Yep. And then I got to shout out our girl Vahva. Vahva, partially owned by West Point Thoroughbreds, got a bunch of other great owners on her, gets her grade 1 win in the Derby City Distaff on Saturday. It really, she's got this really cool rivalry going on with Alva Star. Those are clearly the two best filly and mare sprinters in the country right now. And Vava's just been so solid. She's got enough tactical speed to lay close, but she's adaptable. She's brave. I remember when she won the Charlestown Oaks, and she and Johnny Velasquez had to punch through at the rail going into that first turn, and they both did it and did it with aplomb. And yeah, she's awesome. Shout out to Cherie DeVoe. Her second grade 1 win, her first on American soil. Her other was in Woodbine last September with She Feels Pretty. So I got to give a major pop. That was a real boost for the West Point program and for Cherie to get Vahva her grade 1 win on Saturday. And she's, it's a long way to go, but she's the favorite for the Eclipse Award right now. So that'd be awesome if she could be a champion too.
Joe, I love to see also the fact that and Belladonna Racing, who's part owner of the horse, also posted this on Twitter. They actually, back in 2018, Paul Manganaro, who's a friend, actually sent Cherie a pyramid of success. Here are the goals that, in the timetable that you should set as your personal goals to try to achieve as a trainer. And they weren't easy. It was like, the first one, a couple of them was easy. Win a race, win an allowance race, win a graded stake race, and then win a grade 2, grade 3, and then win a grade 1 by 2024. And she did all those things. And to come from, from basically, I want to say relatively unknown, because she worked for some good programs, but give Cherie DeVoe a lot of credit for being able to work her way up the ladder and to achieve those goals that they preset, but also to continue to manage her racing stable the way she does. I was really pleased to see that horse hit the wire first.
Yeah, no, and shout out to Paul Manganaro and David Engordo and all the people behind the horse that got her to this point. She's worth a lot of money now, man. A grade 1 winning daughter of Gun Runner. Yep. Like she's up there for sure. So yeah, shout out to Cherie. She's another trainer who I think gets the most out of her horses, no matter what they cost. So yeah, that was a great one for the home team. And yeah, just all in all, an excellent weekend of racing. And it's what we love to see.
Yep. And you know what I kept saying all weekend, Joe? # wish I was a horse.
had to throw that in there, man.
I wish I was a horse. I wish I was a horse. If I say it 4 times, does it become true? That to rub a lamp on this?
Can we poof John into a horse's head right now, guys?
I've been poofed into a horse's ass, so I know they can definitely poof me into. Hey, wait, I do have one bone to pick with this whole thing. All right. Did you see?
You got to go negative.
Speaking of trophies and genies and stuff like that, did you see that how WWE tried to like weasel their way into the Kentucky Derby talk? They brought WWE belts, championship belts, back to Ken McPeek, and they were like #WWE KY Derby, and it's like, oh, just you know what? We had such a great weekend. Get the fuck away from us. We don't want to have anything to do with you. Please, for the love of God. The other thing is, how about all the people who were like, there needs to be an asterisk on the Derby because Baffert wasn't. Well, what about like an asterisk on all the other stake races then? Like, what about all the races
Right.
that he didn't run in? I mean, how far do you want to go? Will you stop already? Will you just stop?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Like you said, nobody was talking about him, and we had an excellent weekend of racing,
Yes.
no breakdowns, and great competition on the racetrack. Nobody gave a shit about who wasn't there.
Right.
It was about who was there.
Exactly.
And the horses and the trainers and the jockeys that were there put on a phenomenal show.
Yep.
You know why? Because there's great horse people all across this country, stabled at every single racetrack.
Right.
Most of them can get you to a big race and win a big race. It ain't just the stars of the game.
Right. And 700 horses were entered and raced, and 700 horses came back. So obviously the safety initiatives are working also. #HiSo.